What was the worst thing that you did/said while being angry? One of my friends in primary school had died in a car accident. One of my other friends pissed me off a few days later and I told him that he should have died instead. I was like 9 or 10 at the time. My brother was in middle school, and he biked there every day. I told him that I hoped he got run over. He was hit by a car that very morning and had to be revived 12 times that day. Nobody expected him to live. I've never gotten over what I said. My mother's ex-husband and I had a really volatile relationship. He was mentally and emotionally abusive and my mom was an alcoholic. There was one day where things got extremely bad. Both my mom and her ex-husband were drinking. All I did was walk in the door and that's when it all started. I was told I had no friends. I was told my family didn't care about me and that if I disappear it would be a good break because I was disappointing. I was told that they wished I was dead. I kept trying to tell them to leave me alone. I tried hiding in my room too, but they followed me. I at one point finally became so enraged at them I flipped my bed over, not just the mattress, I'm talking bed frame and all, because I kept a knife under my bed and then chased them out with a knife and told them I would kill them and not to go to sleep. Yeah. That was fun to explain to the cops. I drew my friend burning in lava with the devil hanging out next to him. I was 9. I got expelled from after-school care. When I was very young, I would occasionally hit someone when I was angry. The very last time this happened was in 6th grade. My best friend and I got into a little fight, what about, but I assure you it was dumb, and I hit her as hard as I could on the arm. The look on her face is what snapped me back. She looked as if she had never been hit by anyone, ever, and was obviously very hurt both physically and emotionally. I felt immediate guilt and I swore then and there to never do it again and to be in better control of my emotions. Glad I learned that lesson early. So not as bad as some, but when I was a kid I wanted a hard-boiled egg one afternoon and my mom said no. I asked why and she just said no. I got upset and went to my room. When she went to take a shower or whatever I had the brilliant idea of making my desired egg treat with speed and stealth. I took a coffee mug, filled it with water, dropped the egg in and stuck it in the microwave. I forget how long I set it for, but it was long enough for my mom to come back out to the sound of something cooking in the microwave. She asked me to come to the kitchen, which I shamefully did in defeat. Just as she begins to ask me what I'm cooking, the microwave starts to beep. On the third beep there was this very loud but muffled thump from the microwave. The egg had exploded, the cup had exploded, the microwave was ruined. This wouldn't have been so bad had my family had enough money to replace a microwave and I hadn't wasted eggs. I punched a wall when I caught my ex cheating on me. Now I have to live with this weird bump on my right hand. Probably a curled up tissue or cartilage of some sort. I punched my car door once when my brother wouldn't open it for me. Immediately regretted it once I saw the dent. Also cost me a couple $100 to get that dent fixed. I'm gonna fly kick your mum down a flight of stairs. Ran away from home. I was 10. I gathered some blankets and snacks then headed to a mountain's resting place. I rode a bus for 2 hours then hiked up a mountain to the resting area my dad and I used to enjoy ramen cups. There was a generator nearby which kept me warm. I drank water at the springs. Some campers even gave me food since there was a large camping ground a bit lower to the mountain. After 3 days, I just went home because I really had to poop, but I did not want to shit in the woods. Threw a $3,000 engagement ring that we never found. I threw a rock at the ground and it bounced into my friend's hand, breaking his pinky finger. Total accident and I felt like an idiot. I told my mom to go fuck herself at an Old Navy while a young boy with his mom was holding the door for us. So this one, in my opinion, was a total accident but no one believes me. When my brother was like 3 or 4 he kept rolling this stupid brick around, hitting me with it on the foot and ankles. He was pretending to be a dog or something. Anyway, I got mad after him doing it a couple times and grabbed the brick. Since I was mad, I went to throw it down. I picked it up, turned 90 degrees to the right and wailed this brick to the ground as hard as my 7-year-old arms would let me. I didn't know he crawled around, because he was still pretending to be a dog, and I cracked him in the head with it. I knew I was in big trouble because my parents didn't beat me for it. It took like 10 stitches on the back of his head to fix it. Had a tantrum, threw a coffee pot, over nothing that big. I was awful. As I know my husband will read this, I humbly apologize for being such a bitch last summer. In middle school, one of my classmates was permanently in a wheelchair. He was also a bit of a bully. He was making fun of me and a friend, and in the middle of it I said, *, come on, friend, let's go find some stairs. *. I still cringe pretty hard about that. I told my mom I hated her. I was a kid, I absolutely forgive myself for having done it. I've had my own kids do the same thing to me when they didn't get their way. It happens, kids don't understand. But I know it hurt my mom, and that hurt is still with her today, and I certainly regret it. She did nothing to deserve me saying that. I chucked a My Little Pony at my sister's head and hit her smack in the middle with the unicorn horn. This was because she wouldn't let me play as Rarity. When I'm playing video games and get mad and want to smash my keyboard, I jump out of my chair and do some sort of Irish jig or something, I don't know what to call it, lol, to get all that motion out of me, and then sit back down and everything is normal again. And #X200B. TLDR, if you are angry, dance like you're Irish. I ripped my shirt off of my sister in front of my friends, as in she was wearing my shirt. At the time I snapped. I could not deal with having absolutely nothing that was mine. There were much bigger issues, but that is what I snapped about. I want to crumple up and die of 1,000 paper cuts when I remember it. We're good now. We have fights, as sisters do, but we are best friends. Not even being an awful person in anger can get in the way of the bond that grows when you survive the stuff we got through. It is still the worst memory I have, though. I wish I understood things then the way I do now, but we were both young teens drowning in our reality. I trashed my house after the doctors told me my mother was dying. I scared the shit out of my brother and my nephew. I'm not really prone to fits of rage or an angry person. I was being baited by a couple of people online. One of the girls tragically had lost her parents in the tsunami in Asia back in 2004/2005, well, she really kept calling me heinous shit online and started getting others to do the same. She told me to say the worst thing I could, as I was clearly too thick to think of any rebuttal. To cut a long story short, I said, * your parents purposefully jumped in the water to kill themselves as it'd be less painful than dealing with you. *. Needless to say, when I got into 6th form, UK 16-18 YRS, the next day, I got suspended pending investigation for 3 days. The silver lining is that they found evidence. They bear-baited me a lot and frequently bullied me, so they had to apologize in writing to me. I told my little brother that no one loved him and to just leave me alone. He died a couple weeks later in a car crash, and I never had the balls to apologize, not that I even deserved to be forgiven. I miss you, Luke. When I was 3 years old, I got into a fight with my grandma. Nobody remembers what it was about anymore, but apparently it ended with me telling her to call me when she dies, so I could come visit Granddad. She says she never laughed so hard in her life before. Still, I can't help it but feel kind of bad each time she mentions it. I sent an 3-page, single-spaced letter to my aunt telling her that her entire side of the family were assholes and I would have nothing more to do with them. Yelled at the person I was arguing with, I'd rather get hit by a fucking truck. Doesn't sound bad unless you know that I have, in fact, been hit by a truck, lost a foot, and so I know exactly what that would entail. So they knew I meant it? Back in like 2003, teenage me created a fake AIM name because I suspected my girlfriend was cheating on me. Not only did she flirt with this fake random stranger I created, she confessed to having sex with many different guys. Just bragging about it? Instead of handling this well, I logged into her AIM, I knew her password, and hit on every man she knew and convinced them she liked to bang dogs. Word got around and she got kicked out of her church. Definitely worst angry thing I've done. When my brother and I were kids, I think I was 10 and he was 6, we used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories on the PlayStation. I discovered a bug by accident that would allow you to duplicate cards, so I did it for our Meteor B dragons on both memory cards. The next day we had McDonald's and my McFlurry was missing, and I accused him of eating it. I was so mad that I stole his memory card and got rid of the duplicated dragons, with a nasty little note. He was heartbroken and we later found out it was our mum that ate it. I still feel awful all these years later, but we have a great brother-sister relationship now. I don't care that you broke your elbow. I snapped for just a moment and hit the door with my fist, however the person I was talking to and who got me so upset thought for a moment that I was about to hit her. The way she stepped back and looked terrified of me will haunt me forever. I don't really want to elaborate on the situation though. I told my mother she should make an abortion because I would rather be dead than listening to her bullshit. She is a good mother but the backstory is too complicated to explain. On my 21st birthday I had to work. No problem, I worked at a bar. I figured I'd get off and have a drink or two to celebrate. My dad and uncle show up already hammered. I love my dad and uncle but they have issues with alcohol. I drink maybe half a beer cause I'm so embarrassed by my dad and uncle at my job and suggest we leave. My dad decides he is going to drive and I think not a great idea but he's the adult. He nearly crashes twice until he stopped at a gas station for more beer. I get into the driver's seat pissed off cause I don't want him to drive. We get home and I scream at him, get your fucking life together. You're hammered drunk and just tried to drive with your fucking kid in the car. Fucking figure it out. I saw the hurt but I think he needed it. He still has issues with alcohol but I can't figure out how to help him. Ultimately it's his choice to get the help but it hurts to watch him drink himself to death. This one time I was having a mental breakdown due to losing my friend to heroin. A person was showing a lot of empathy and really did understand what I was going through. In my anguish, I stated this. Oh, don't give me that cliché bullshit. I know that bullshit is all fake, you bitch. Then I proceeded to mock her words in a very disrespectful voice. Looking back now, I feel super bad. I wish I could apologize, but she graduated and left the state a couple years ago. I rubbed my sister's toothbrush on my brother's deodorant. I was in elementary school and was arguing with my older sister. Meant to call her a horse but called her a whore. Didn't mean it and I felt terrible but I couldn't take it back as I'd lose the argument. I had just gotten back home after tried to kill myself and my older brother was mocking me and calling me different vulgar names. I got so angry that I started punching the wall and didn't stop until my hand was broken in multiple places and a good-sized hole in the wall. I'm not an angry person but being mocked just sets me off in a way nothing else does. Broke up with a girlfriend I really loved and had no real reason besides being angry at mostly myself and not doing the right thing of working on us and talking to her about the minor issues I had. Yup. That sucked. I had a lot of issues I needed to work on, and have gotten help. I said this to my mom, in reference to my dad, whom I have had many struggles with. Respect is earned, not owed. Didn't he learn this lesson with his first son? My dad was previously married and he has lots of regrets in regards to not having contact with his son from that marriage. I feel as though I have somehow put a terrible burden on my mom by saying that. Yelled at my dad to piss off and stop criticizing my girlfriend because one day she might be my wife. I had 23 at the time. She dumped me a year later. A month after she dumped me, she began dating her neighbor, right next door. 3 months after she dumped me, they married. 5 months after she dumped me, they had a little girl. You don't know how much I regret what I said to my father. Edit, I was 23 yo at the time. Whoops. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship for years. At one point I snapped when he told me he was dating someone else as well, and I went after every weak point I knew he had, mentioning everything he was insecure about, and told him after I was finished that he was a worthless person with no more than trash, and kicked him out of my car, made him walk home. My kids were having one of those nights. Hyper, disobedient, destructive, belligerent, and downright disrespectful. After multiple attempts to get them to calm down and do what they've been told, I lost my shit, and I told them that I spent the whole drive home wondering if I should even come home tonight or stay at work until after they went to bed. Bad, but not that bad. Then I doubled down and said that I wished I had listened to myself and stayed at work. I've probably done worse at some point, but the one I feel the worst about is when my then girlfriend came over in a really talkative mood. I was feeling really low energy and just wanted to chill, so her talking started to really overwhelm me. But I overreacted and said, "You haven't stopped talking since you got here," and I will never forget the defeated, sad look in her face. I still feel a knot in my gut when I think about that. Ended up getting exceptionally disappointed and angry when I got the tax bill last year. It was a ridiculous amount that will take a long time to pay off. It's the second time this has happened. Anyways, I punched a cabinet a couple times with a stifled shout, lived in an apartment with neighbors connected. Didn't break anything, fortunately, save for the skin on my knuckles. Would have just cost me more. TLDR, fought a cabinet, cabinet won. Forced my sister to apologize to me 1,000 times. I sat there and counted each of them. Can't recall how old I was at the back then. I've said some really awful things to my wife in the heat of a fight. I've regretted every single one of them. I told my father I'll be giving him water with a fork when he will be old. Started a riot at a 16th birthday party at a church because a supposed friend got with a girl I was sort of seeing. In hindsight, she was trying to make me jealous, and it probably wasn't his fault. But regardless, I went for him and he ran home, so me, being extremely angry, went a walk with another mate to calm down somewhat. When we came back, there was police and ambulances at the church. We quickly learned that me starting a fight led to folk looking for who started it, to them blaming folk from another school, which basically started a gang war based on where you grew up, while me and my mate had a nice walk. So this is back in the Skype era when anyone could change the group/call name. A couple of girls kept changing the name of it, and teenage me got more and more angry cause I wanted it to be a specific thing. Now, I was close with one of the girls and she had confided in me that the love of her life had died in a car crash. Pretty terrible stuff. You may see where this is going. Teenage me had enough and decided to insult the girls rather than give up, so I changed the group name to something along the lines of, "No wonder your BF left you behind." And that's my biggest regret. I'm absolutely certain I've done worse, but I was 13 or 14. I told my dad I hated him. He cried. I still feel that so deeply in my heart. I do not now or then hate my dad. I love him so much. It taught to me to be so much more careful. I think I have said worse things when furious. I'm pretty sure I meant them, though, so I don't feel so much regret. In adulthood, my rage is very cold and precise. Cruelty and truth is my ultimate style. Not proud. Not pleasant. But at least I don't make my dad cry. My mum's the strongest woman I know. We were in an argument one day, and as I was complaining about the troubles I was going through in my life, which are on reflection trivial, she said, "Well, we've all been through hardships in our lives," as to try and end the argument. She was referring to her dad, who died when she was young. She loved him a lot and still misses him terribly, but she never shows it. So I was kind of taken aback. Before I could think, I responded with, "Sorry, I haven't lost anyone." I was angry that I thought she wasn't taking my problems seriously, but I see now that she was only trying to put them into perspective. I felt so ashamed of what I had said and I apologize immediately afterwards. Never let anger blind you. My sister's name is Victoria. When she was little, people used to make fun of her by calling her Icky Vicky and singing the song from Fairly Odd Parents, "Hey Vicky, you're so icky." So one time, she made me mad. I don't remember what she said, so I started singing the old cartoon version of the song which has much harsher lyrics, whose breath smells like a dog's behind, who's cuddly as a porcupine, who's a curse on all mankind. Icky Vicky. By the time I finished the song, she was in tears. I tried to kill my aunt when I was 13. I was raised by my mother's incredibly abusive sister and her family as a foster child from the age of 5. After 8 years of that, I started to lose my mind. I realized that I couldn't do this until I was 18 and was desperate for a way out. I formulated a plan to poison her coffee with antifreeze. I didn't expect to get away with it, but I figured they'd put me in juvie for a few years since I was a minor, which was far preferable to me. I just needed out. I put some antifreeze in a travel shampoo bottle, more compact and easier to carry for when I saw my chance, and put it in her coffee a few days later. She tasted it and dumped it, but didn't know what it was. It's funny, I spent years trying to get someone to notice, someone to do something, someone to save me. In the end, I saved myself. When the attempt failed, I wrote about it in a secret diary, knowing she read it. It was a huge gamble, but she never touched me again. If you want something done, sometimes you've got to do it yourself. When I was in college I got drunk one night and punched a pint glass out of frustration. It ended up slicing my finger really badly, like there was a flap of skin that came up. Went to the bathroom and ran it under water, but it just kept bleeding. I didn't know what to do and was too drunk to try to deal with it, so I just wrapped my hand in a towel and tried to go to sleep. Woke up to knocking at my door and it ended up being security. He followed a trail of blood from the bathroom to my room and wanted to make sure I was alright. I showed him my finger and he was like, "Come on, you gotta go to the hospital." Dude was a bro and drove me there even though it was like 3 a.m. Saw a doctor and he had to give me a bunch of stitches. He said I was very lucky because if it was just a tiny bit deeper I would have probably had done permanent damage and lost mobility of the finger. Now I have this scar on my finger shaped like a Nike swoosh. https://i.imager.com/cehqrg0.jpg, to remind me not to be stupid and try to fight glass. I had really toxic roommates my sophomore year of college, borderline emotional abuse. One day after one of them had finished screaming at me for no reason, I decided to move out and took the Wi-Fi router, I was paying for it, with me right before finals week. I beat the shit out of my sibling after he found me unconscious from a failed suicide. They don't hold it against me, but it's hard getting over the regret of lashing out at someone who loves me and just wanted to help me. Probably wasn't thinking straight after not having oxygen to the point of blacking out. I told my dad I hated him and that he is the reason I quit the sport I loved/played my whole life. He used to be my coach and just put so much pressure on me and always gave my teammates credit but never gave me my dues. This is something I told him long ago, and I've apologized for, but I still fear it haunts him inside when we have slight arguments, or I talk about my wedding plans. Him and I aren't close now, but we aren't strangers either, and I worry that he will take that to heart forever. Some girls ran a light and almost T-boned me. Then on the road, they no-looked cut me off and flipped me off when I honked. So I got ahead of them and tossed a small can of gesso, primer for canvases, out my window and it smashed open on their windshield while doing 55 miles per hour. In a 7-year relationship, I was engaged to an alcoholic/crack addict. At one point in our supposedly normal, middle-class life, he agreed to go to detox/rehab. I was driving him to a detox center, when he abruptly changed his mind and refused to go. I was so angry that I drove with him around Toronto furiously at the highest possible speed, not stopping for anything including stoplights, pedestrians etc. while yelling at him. I genuinely thank my lucky stars every day that I didn't kill anyone, as anything could have easily happened. Committed child abuse. Don't take anger issues lightly. If you have them, or think you have them, seek help. I told my mom I hated her and almost pushed her down the staircase. Now I can't forget that and I hate myself for it, although it happened like 2 years ago and she forgot about it. I know that cause I once casually said sorry for saying shit and she was like, huh, you said something bad to me. I'm glad she doesn't remember, but I still hate myself for it. Got into a fight with ex-girlfriend's dad and received an assault charge for ABH after I had butted him and bit his hand when he put me in a headlock. Lost everything that day. I'm slowly rebuilding my life and figuring out how to control myself more. I wrote "I hate daddy" on my wall when I was a little kid. Forgot about it then when we moved, or my dad painted or something, he found it and it made him cry. I never felt so terrible and didn't realize the impact it would have on him. Still bothers me. I don't even know why I wrote it. Me and my ex-girlfriend argued, a lot. I grew up seeing abuse and everything else under the sun, and I taught myself to respect women and virtually everyone. I wanted to be the polar opposite of what my father was. Me and my ex were having our usual argument, and I was quite fed up with it. She was a very modest and caring girl. So when the words "fuck you" came out of my mouth, I was shocked. It may seem like nothing, but it definitely felt like I meant it. I hated myself for a solid week after that. We ended up breaking up a couple months later. I slapped my best friend in the face. We were arguing over something arbitrary and she just wouldn't let me speak my side, so out of frustration I slapped her. I still feel bad about it, but that was years ago and now I never see her anyway. I haven't slapped anyone since. I got mad at my boys for leaving their crap all over the house. One had left a belt on the kitchen counter. I picked it up to throw it down the hallway towards their bedrooms and hit my antique mirror made by the younger brothers. They rode with the James gang. Was hoping that but ugly mirror was worth something, not anymore. I learned never to throw another object in anger. This was recent and I feel like shit about it. My boyfriend quit his job about 5 months ago. Hasn't made any moves to get a job. Done odd jobs here and there. I don't remember the context of the fight, or how we got to this point, but I said something really shitty, along the lines of, "It's not my fault you peaked in high school and can't get off your lazy ass to work." I feel like shit every time I think about it. I was in an abusive relationship for my first relationship when I was 15. I got gaslighted, yelled at, called a liar, and was threatened by my older boyfriend. It would often end up with him self-harming and blaming me for it. One day, like all the rest, he berated me on a sidewalk on our way to school, calling me selfish, useless. Something in me snapped and I screamed at him. Screamed at him for being a bully, for controlling my life. I let it all out. He collapsed on the sidewalk and began to cry, and some old lady passing by scolded me for being an asshole to my boyfriend. Told my ex I cheated on her to piss her off. Ended the relationship. I am an alcoholic, currently in recovery, who had a long-distance girlfriend. She put up with my everyday drinking for a few years until finally it got so bad she stuck to her guns and broke up with me. In a fit of drunken rage, on the phone, I told her not only was she terrible for abandoning me, but that she was the fattest girl I ever dated. Knowing she had some self-esteem issues, she wasn't even an overweight girl. I apologized once sober, but I still feel awful for saying that 6 years later. Sometimes when I was angry and drunk I went for the lowest blow I could go for when attacking someone. This was the worst. Shitted on the floor. A guy at work keyed my car and bragged about it behind my back, so I set him up as a drug dealer and got him fired and investigated by law enforcement. Last I heard he became an alcoholic and hasn't held down a job since. I punched a priest in a prestigious high school. He told me I was a disgrace to my mother. I dropped him so fast got expelled. My mom told me she would have done the same thing lol. Attempted to murder my best friend whilst he had secured the high ground. I'm not particularly an angry person, at least when I'm not playing games, because when I was younger, I had the worst case of game rage. I was in the middle of playing a horror game on my Xbox trying for a long time to collect an balls to the walls annoying achievement, and after going at it for a while, I died, and had to redo all of my progress. That made me lose my shit, and I smashed my controller onto the table, made of glass, the table exploded, and I managed to get some pretty gnarly cuts. Since then, my game rage has drastically decreased to almost zero. I quit my job. That was 2 months ago and I still haven't found a replacement. I still got a chance to do something with my life. I said to my dad, it's the only time I've made him cry. I think about it every day. Threw a chopping board out the window. I know it sounds tame, but I'm usually pretty level-headed in times of conflict, but my flatmate wouldn't wash up her shit and it was getting moldy. We started arguing and I ended up throwing it out the open window. Mid-argument I told my dad he had never taught me anything. Never seen a man go from angry to defeated so quickly. The worst part is it was a straight-up lie. I'm scum. Around Christmas I was teasing my little sister lightheartedly and she got so annoyed that she got her wires crossed. She meant to say why don't you fuck off? And screw you and the horse you rode in on. What she said was, in pure aggravation, why don't you fuck the horse you rode in on? I died laughing. Not a terrible thing but certainly the worst thing I've heard someone say while angry. This happened last week. My girlfriend and I were walking to our next class and she was complaining about how awful her class went when out of nowhere I snapped and said, I'm sick of your fucking pessimism. Always looking at the bad side of things, that's why you never have good days. I feel terrible about it. Just thinking about it makes me cry. I'm not very emotional. I've apologized to her so much. I didn't even mean it, I wasn't mad, I just said it. Edit, fix spelling error. I told a guy I was dating that I hoped he'd die in the war during a drunken argument at a house party. He was a soldier and never ended up getting sent back on deployment, so he didn't die, thankfully. The whole situation was toxic, myself included. He was 25 and I was in high school when we started dating, so it was bad to begin with. We actually kept seeing each other for about another year and a half after that until he cut me off out of nowhere. I found out he got married. Later found out his pregnant wife divorced him once she found out he was hiring hookers every weekend. I do feel bad about what I said, I was wrong for that. And in a way I feel bad for him, but you reap what you sow. I destroyed my Diablo 2 CDs with a sword I got from the medieval fair. Used to get pestered by this panhandler all the time when I was much younger. He was in his 60s, super obnoxious and just unrelenting. Even if you gave him money he would immediately ask for more. One day I had enough, and when he hit me up for $1 for the millionth time I turned and looked him straight in the eye and said, when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up? Then I stared at him for what felt like an eternity but was probably 10 seconds. He didn't answer, just looked away and shuffled off. He never asked me for money again, but to this day I regret having said that to him. Oof, you came back with a hammer. You couldn't know. When Buddy Holly's bus broke down on his tour and he was about to take that flight he eventually died in instead, he joked with one of his bandmates that he hoped he didn't freeze to death in the broken bus. The bandmate jokingly responded that he hoped Holly's plane crashed. Haunted that dude for the rest of his life. Nobody expected him to live. Did he? My fiancé got mad at his father when he was 5 years old because he was supposed to take him on a camping trip. At the last minute the father showed up and said my fiancé couldn't go. I guess he had broken up with his girlfriend and wanted to drink with his buddies. My fiancé at 5 said, I hate you. I hope you die. His father did die in a fatal water skiing accident the next day. It took years for my fiancé to forgive himself. All the anger and pain is heartbreaking. Basically what I'm trying to say is, you were just a kid yourself. Kids say stupid shit they don't mean. Please try to forgive yourself. Hugs. The last thing my mum said to her brother before he died was that she hoped he dropped dead. She found him, basically, dead the next morning. It took her years to realize no matter what she said to him, nothing would have changed. She now jokes and says it's the only time he did what she said. Basically, no matter what you said that day he was still going to be hit by that car. I hope you explained to the police that they were abusing you. Hello, 911? I'm trying to bully my child and he's not having it. Angry face. No child deserves to hear that. I hope things turned out well for you. Many hugs. This one's my favorite LMAO. Edit. This comment got me to 6,969 karma. Thanks y'all. That's fucking hilarious. When I was in 5th grade I drew pictures of a girl I didn't like, stick figures literally, dying in various ways. Ata asked what I was drawing and I put the paper crumpled up in my mouth. She made me take it out and then showed administration me and 2 other kids, who also drew pictures, got suspended for 3 days and the victim's mom put her in another school. One of the other kids who got suspended was the Ta's daughter LMAO. When I was younger and went to church my mom gave us these little books that had a Bible in them but also a blank journal and I would draw in them. Hercules was my favorite movie at the time and I drew Zeus with a trident. My mom got mad at me for putting the devil in God's spot. I said it was God because I didn't know the difference between God and Zeus. Still got grounded. Good personal growth and respect to you for it. Did your friend forgive you? I have 3 brothers. When we were younger me and my one brother used to physically fight regularly. Like at least once every couple months. Not for fun either. I stopped after one of my brothers that I got along with got into an argument with me and I punched him just because that was what happened when you argued with a brother. I will never forget the look he gave me before he ran to get mom. I have never thrown a punch since then and don't plan on it unless I'm fighting for my life. Why wouldn't your mom let you have an egg? My daughter wanted a hard-boiled egg a few years back, and I had just cleaned the kitchen, so I decided to just stick it in a mug in the microwave and cook it that way. It exploded with so much force, it opened the microwave door. I now had to clean egg off of everything. Would have been easier to clean a pot, but I had no idea it would blow the way it did.
Thank you for watching. We publish amazing Reddit stories every day. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe to keep the dog smiling.